It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders on this Wednesday, on this hump day. Alan on his afternoon drive. Alan, you heading to Raising Cane's again, or where are we heading?
Not going to Raising Cane's.
Okay.
No. Just headed home, pick up my wife, and then we're going out to dinner. So there you go.
There we go. Something better than Raising Cane's tonight on the menu.
Something better than Raising Cane's, yes.
But I do appreciate that there were people in the comments that actually played into it. There were people saying it's trash or it's just the sauce or they do love Raising Cane's. So we got a little bit of everything within the comments.
I respect the just the sauce take, but
yeah,
I mean that's the whole point is the sauce.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The point of this show is to give people the most up-to-date Steelers knowledge, and we will certainly get into that along with the information. We're going to talk about some injury report stuff, talk about the quarterbacks because everyone's talking about quarterbacks, maybe a little bit about George Pickens, and then start previewing this game. It's only Wednesday, so we'll spend obviously a couple days talking about the Jets, but specifically this quarterback of theirs in Aaron Rodgers. After being picked apart just a few weeks ago by Joe Flacco, what kind of challenges does Aaron Rodgers still present at this stage in his career? But I want to start with the injury stuff. Najee Harris popping up on the injury report, not just for rest, actually listed as ribs. What do we make of that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously I was watching practice and 22 wasn't out there, and I figured, it'll just be, another Wednesday where he gets the day off. That's happened a few times already this season. I walked across the parking lot with Najee today. He wasn't like doubled over in pain or anything,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's hard to say with an injury like ribs, but it does not seem, it didn't seem to me like he was dealing with something serious. So I would assume this is just a day and that he'll be back tomorrow, but I guess we don't know for sure.
I thought this was them or his way of telling us what he's having for dinner.
Ribs. Yeah. Could be. Could be. I'm surprised he didn't just put back from carrying the offense through that Raiders game. That really, should have been the injury for Harris. Way more appropriate than ribs.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see what tomorrow brings, but like you, I fully expect that he'll be back out there. Already touched on Alex Highsmith being back this week. On yesterday's show, we also talked about Zach Frazier, but didn't have a timeline for when we could expect him back. That's changed over the last 24 hours. Pretty, I don't want to say 100% clear, but a better indicator of when Zach Frazier will be returning to the lineup.
Yeah, I saw Zach today. He's got the full boot on his left ankle and also has, I don't know if you're familiar with this, one of those little four-wheeled carts that kind of looks like a scooter that you kneel on and then you wheel yourself around.
I had one when I had my surgery. Yeah.
Zach's still getting used to it. Took a little spill in the locker room today. Not quite proficient at the scooter thing, but is expected to miss this week and next week with the bye week following. Optimism that he will be able to return for week 9 against the Washington Commanders. That actually seems to be a very popular week for guys to be returning. Also, I've heard that is the date that Nick Herbig is targeting, and perhaps Corey Trice as well. So the team, perhaps if they could go 2 games without having someone else suffer a major injury, could be relatively healthy for that stretch run.
Cam Sutton, not from injury, but they'll
Cam Sutton, not back from injury, but will be back. He has been around the team. Talked to Beanie Bishop a little bit today, actually. Said Sutton's really been helping him through some struggles over the last few weeks, although I thought he had a much better game against the Raiders than the previous couple.
Sure. Absolutely. You mentioned Trice within there. Haven't heard anything on him lately, though. I mean, is he doing anything yet, or is he still just down?
Nothing that I can say, but nothing significant. I did talk to Corey today a little bit. The Steelers are celebrating the 1974 team, 50th anniversary of the 1974 team winning the Steelers' first Super Bowl, and Glenn Edwards was defensive back, wore 27 on that team. And I asked Corey if he had ever heard of him or knew anything about him. Suggested that he look him up. He's another big guy for a DB. He played free safety, but was sort of like the safety back then would play a lot of slot corner, what we would call nickel now. And so I talked to Corey a little bit, but I didn't get the sense that he is like imminently ready to return. But yeah, I think by about week 9, it feels pretty safe for him as well.
Anything new? We saw, I think it was a comment like 2 days ago, and I meant to ask about it, so I feel bad that I left people in the dust on this. But we had a couple actually of people just looking for an update periodically, as I think the people are looking for on Cole Holcomb. I mean, anything yet still at this point?
I mean, he's still running, he's still working. I would also assume that around the bye week would be a target for him. I haven't talked to Cole specifically about it, but that was kind of the sense I got before the season that the bye week was kind of a target there. So Matakevich also, I believe, could actually be back next week, possibly, if not the following.
Yeah, it's tricky. Like anybody that's probably close to ready for next week, you just wonder. They just give them that extra week, try to get by until the bye, and give them that extra time. So.
I'm talking about guys on the roster like MyCole Pruitt, full participant today. I think will play this week. But like a guy like Cordarrelle Patterson, who I haven't talked to, but like didn't practice today. Even if he gets some limiteds this week, like you think like same kind of thing. Like just push that one till after the bye as well. Probably, I would assume.
KZ still not practicing today, right?
Yeah, I mean he seemed to suggest his injury was not that bad. So it will just be about whether he can practice or not. I would not close the door to KZ playing this week still, even though he hasn't practiced yet.
Gotcha. Well, there's the injury roundup.
KZ stepped on the football in warmups. That's how he got hurt. Did I tell you that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he stepped on the football in warmups against the Cowboys, and then I assume took some kind of painkiller, and then was able to play through it. But since then, it swelled up, and he wasn't able to practice through the swelling last week, and so that's what the issue was. So I wouldn't totally rule out KZ, but what a ridiculous, like, just of all the injury things that have happened to the Steelers, like even the football is now against them.
Yeah, what a Looney Tunes ass way to get hurt.
Yeah, seriously. That's a very good way to put it. Looney Tunes.
No longer limited, Mr. Unlimited, Russell Wilson, fully practicing now at this point, and he took QB1 reps to start the week, Allen, of practice for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah. Strange way to get here. I don't really still quite understand what happened yesterday with the NFL Network report and then Mike Tomlin kind of saying different stuff and all that. But it is my expectation as we sit here on Wednesday afternoon that Russell Wilson is going to start for the Steelers this week and that we should all prepare accordingly. I would be very surprised if that does not happen. I think to me, the only question in my mind is if and how much Justin Fields will still play while Russell Wilson starts. I think that may still be up for some consideration, but I am pretty confident that Russell Wilson's going to be the starting quarterback.
I am too. And, this is hindsight at this point because we're going back a couple weeks. But you and I were both hearing the same thing about a target date. This was, without even talking to each other about it weeks ago. And could Justin Fields have changed their minds within that time frame? Sure, but I don't think that he has. It doesn't seem like he has. So I, like you expected, it will be Russell Wilson. As far as using both of them, we talked about this too. Like, how similar would it look to like a New Orleans? Like there hasn't been many successful cases teams doing so. The Saints, the way that they kind of utilize Taysom Hill, just from the quarterback perspective, I don't expect that we'll see Justin Fields running routes from the tight end spot or playing special teams like Taysom Hill does. But I appreciate the look on your face right now, by the way, as well.
They could use the route running help. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. But I will say it's typically not successful, but with the person, like if it was going to be, this is the personnel that you would have to have, like Justin Fields, because of what he brings with his legs. I know you want to talk about Russell Wilson's mobility because of the people that are kind of questioning that aspect of what he can bring in that regard or not bring in that regard. But like, so if there was a situation to do it, it probably is with these two quarterbacks.
Yeah, I talked about David Woodley and Ron Schock from way back in the 80s. They did it with the Dolphins, went to the Super Bowl in, I think, 82. And it's possible. I don't think it's likely. I think it takes an interesting combination of skill sets and personalities. But I think the Steelers kind of have it. Like I think like the personalities of these guys, they get along. Like they're competitive, but they get along. Both have a lot to prove. No one is really established either here or in the NFL at this point in their career. I don't know. I think it could work. I would be very interested in like Russell Wilson plays to start almost every drive, and Justin Fields comes on in short yardage situations and at the goal line. And then maybe you put in like one series a half where Fields just runs a whole collection of plays. I don't know. I could be interested in that.
Go ahead.
Also, like Arthur Smith is a very creative offensive coordinator. He has a tendency to kind of get in his bag a little bit too much, as we may have seen with that double reverse pass last week. But like, this is right up his alley. Like, if you were giving that's the part of it. Is like the guys. I think the guys' personalities would work. Their skill sets fit. This is the right offensive coordinator to do something like that. I don't know. I talked a lot about it on the Morning Rush today. I don't want to talk too much more about it, but I think it's an intriguing idea.
Yeah, I do too. I'm curious to see if it does come to fruition. I don't know. Like, I guess never say never with Mike Tomlin, right? We talked about how even the idea of going away from Justin with a 4-2 record is kind of something that goes against what we'd see them do in the past. So maybe using both quarterbacks is also in that same vein. You said you don't want to spend too much time talking about that. What you said you do want to talk about on here is the mobility or perceived lack thereof by some in the fan base about Russell Wilson, whether it be because of his age or just concerns about health, whatever it might be. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, like a part of this conversation about Justin Fields and Russell Wilson has to be about the fact that you're certainly losing a lot when you take Justin's legs out of the equation, even if you're adding something when you put Russ's arm into the equation, right? I mean, he's just not going to run as well as Justin Fields does. That's clear. But I see people talking about Russell Wilson like he's this like decrepit guy who can barely move, like he's Aaron Rodgers. And he's not that at all. Like Russ moves just fine. Probably better than any other quarterback the Steelers have had in recent memory. I mean, he's fast. Is he as fast as Justin Fields? No, nobody is. But like the idea that Russ is like, going to be a sitting duck back there or isn't able to move enough to protect himself, I just don't. That does not jive with the athlete that I've been watching. And also, he's always been one of his best traits is the ability to move in the pocket and keep his eyes downfield. And that's something Justin's not particularly at. I mean, mostly when Justin runs, he makes plays by running, but Russ can extend plays with his legs and then throw the ball. Something he's always been really good at. So I don't know. I see a lot of people talking about like, oh, Russ is going to get killed. I'm just like, man, I don't see it. I think Russ is a pretty elusive athlete, really good at feeling the rush. And I don't know. That doesn't line up with what I think of Russell Wilson.
So I'll be honest with you. Hearing you say that as somebody that actually sees him makes me feel better about it because I feel like I kind of fell into that bucket, not because of the age or anything like that. Like if he didn't have this calf injury, I wouldn't be one of those people talking like that. I think for me personally, because of him having that injury and being curious about what he would even look like after that, that is why I kind of felt like, you were talking about damaged goods in terms of the mobility that he would be able to bring to the table. But if he looks like his normal self, if he's moving fine, then that would ease my mind because I know the type of athlete that he's been in the past.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Tomlin said yesterday he considers him to be 100% healthy. They would be insane to play him if he's not 100% healthy. I haven't seen anything from him that makes me. No, you're not like. I mean, we talked a lot about like, hey, all those weeks I was like, it's not realistic that he's going to play because I've not seen the man sprint. Well, I've seen him sprint now. It looks fine. I mean, they're not doing a lot of that in practice, obviously, but I just think. I don't know. I think people have this misconception that just old or injured means slow. Russell Wilson is not slow. Like, short,
Yeah.
he's not
You see the two
slow
side
though.
by side, it's pretty crazy.
Dude, it's so like, just because of the way that this week is going with the storylines, there's been a lot of opportunities to use pictures of Fields and Wilson together next to each other, and almost every time we post one, we get a comment like, "Is Russ really that short?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he's really that short. He's a small man." And Justin's fairly tall, not like,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe 6'2",
And
something like that.
not just tall, but like he's just a big dude. Like he's a big
He's
quarterback.
lanky.
Like,
He's lanky also. Like, he looks tall. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny seeing and the end result ends up. I mean, certainly there are differences, but like the athletic result ends up looking a lot of the same. Like when they're navigating the pocket and throwing, they do a lot of similar things. It's just Russ being a better reader of defenses and a little bit more accurate, and Fields being faster and a better runner.
yeah. Which is, so if the Steelers do turn the keys back over to Russell Wilson, who was supposed to be QB1, it will be because they feel like there's more to be unlocked in the passing game and like the upside of that for the offense more than what they feel like Justin's going to provide them in the run game, right? I mean, that's kind of my read on this.
Yeah, and I think it's probably also just about like a lack of faith in a plan being successful that doesn't include more passing success than what we've seen. Like it's one thing to be 4-2 with this plan, but like I think the Steelers are aware that they're going to have to throw the ball more and more successfully than they have to reach their ultimate goal. And so it really is, in many ways, I think, like sort of, setting aside some good while chasing great. And that can be dangerous, but I don't think it's the wrong move. I think like you said, it's a little out of character for Mike Tomlin, but I don't think it's wrong to try that. Right. And this is a weird time because of the way that Fields just had so much success. And just they're 4-2. He scored 30 points last game, but also like probably got to figure this out in these next 2 weeks. Like, you're not going to want to change quarterbacks in the second half of the schedule.
Yeah, no, I agree. I get it. Something that someone in the YouTube comments was curious about, and I'll bring up now. Sometimes the questions are appropriate towards the end, but when one fits in perfectly with the subject that we're talking about, I just try to play it in that way. Somebody was asking about the exchanges between Ryan McCollum and Russell Wilson, because we've obviously seen some snap issues with Zach Frazier and Justin Fields, going even back to the preseason, stuff like that. How much of that was just the lack of chemistry with them two working together? Obviously, Ryan McCollum, not a guy that's worked a ton with Russell Wilson. Do you have any concerns about what that looks like, or are we maybe thinking about this too much?
I'm pretty sure that the first time that Russell Wilson has ever taken a snap from Ryan McCollum was today at practice. But
yeah,
I honestly don't have any concerns with it. I feel like most of the issues about Zach Frazier and Justin Fields were about Zach Frazier and Justin Fields, and not about the fact that they were new to each other. Zach Frazier is new to the NFL, and Justin Fields has always struggled with snaps under center. That was one of the things that happened a ton to him in Chicago. So, like, I don't think that Russ and Ryan McCollum are going to have any problems getting the ball snapped.
Okay. So
Ryan McCollum, by the way, like, I don't know, did we talk about him? Like, just to me, like a cool story. I have a soft spot for guys that with a high level of stick-to-itiveness. Football is unbelievably difficult on your body and mentally. Like, I'm exhausted just like traveling the country and showing up where these guys show up, let alone like doing what they do. They do have slightly nicer travel accommodations, but
just a little bit.
Do everything it takes to be an NFL player and do it for 2 years without getting a single opportunity to play in a game is like a serious amount of dedication. Like, belief in yourself that this is the place for me. This chance is going to come. All I got to do is keep working. And I love it when guys like that get rewarded. Obviously, nobody's rooting for an injury, but I think it's just really cool that, and he's a pretty humble guy, works really hard. And those are the kind of people that it's rewarding to see their effort pay off. I think a lot of people have perception of NFL athletes as like generally somewhat entitled people, or obviously they're all making a heck of a lot more money than me and you, even Ryan, who's on a minimum salary. But I just think, man, some people are working for it at a different level than others, and he's one of them.
No, I appreciate you saying that and shedding some light on it. Ryan McCollum, if you obviously include his time with practice squads, has been in the NFL now since 2021. So he's lasted longer on practice squads and stuff than your typical NFL career lasts anyway. Without getting, again, just one kind of start.
He played with the Lions as a rookie, played a lot, and then got claimed by the Steelers off waivers the following season, and then spent 2 years on the Steelers practice squad without playing a game. Came back for a third and got his opportunity.
There we go. And we hope that he makes the most of it. Speaking of making the most of opportunities, I want to shift our attention to talk about George Pickens, of course. I think a lot of conversation when you talk about these high-profile receivers or any wide receivers in general typically involves getting them involved early. And I think that that's going to be a big topic of conversation this week. Problem with that, very good Jets defense and a star-studded secondary headlined by Sauce Gardner, who you assume will see a lot of George Pickens on Sunday night.
Yeah, I think I wrote this morning, SteelersNow.com, George has not been particularly good these last 2 weeks. And, I think some of the Cowboys game was in his own head and being soft benched or whatever you want to call it and all that stuff. None of that happened against the Raiders. He was out there being a model citizen and a very meager production to show for it. Just 3 catches, 50-some yards, but almost all of them came on the last one in sort of garbage time. Steelers caught the Raiders defense napping. Catching 6 of his last 15 targets. It's not a look you really want when you're, always effing open. If you are, then something's not going right there. And I think that is an underrated part of the discussion about making a change at quarterback. I think if you go into a game saying, hey, what this team really needs is to find a way to get George Pickens going. Certainly Justin can throw the ball. But I think the ability to say, hey, the defense is making a concerted effort to take George Pickens away. They're not afraid of the rest of these wide receivers. Like a lot of times guys who are younger and less experienced will just read a defense and say, oh, the easy throw is going to be over there and not look that way. And I think guys that have been around longer have a better idea of, well, hey, this might be a harder throw, but here's how I can still make it and make it harder for defenses to take one player away. I think we saw that a lot with Kenny Pickett last year, where like defenses were sending the second safety over towards George Pickens, and Pickett was just never even looking that direction. And I think Russ is probably a little bit better equipped to make some changes at the line of scrimmage, to read a play as it develops and spot a disguise in coverage where, hey, it looked like Pickens wasn't going to be open, but now he actually is, and just sort of maximize what they're getting from their kind of one potential star receiver. I think that's an underrated part of this.
I think the other thing, too, that I wanted to bring up is, do you feel like, because there was all this talk about, and I think Pat Freiermuth has been good this year, but like there's a lot of talk about him moving around to different spots, like even potentially lining up out wide and stuff like that. Have you seen the same utilization that you expected from him?
No. I mean, I've seen him be wide open a I have not seen the ball be delivered to his hands. I I have been talking about Pat Freiermuth being open a lot, and perhaps for that reason, Pat in the locker room today said that if he was asked by the media who he wants to be the starting quarterback, that he was going to say me. Uh, so, as a way of avoiding the question, that was his pledge. But also, it could just be because I've been beating the drum about Pat being open a lot and not getting the ball. So he knows that I see him there. I'm aware of 88's openness.
I told him to say Cordarrelle Patterson, so he didn't listen to me.
Cordarrelle Patterson said himself. So I think he doesn't need anyone to argue for him.
That's true. All right, well, so we got...
I also would pick Cordarrelle Patterson just because I really want to see that. He has a great arm, like a legit great arm. Like, I don't know what it would look like, but I want to see it.
So we have subsets of the fan base here. We got a lot of votes for Russell Wilson, a lot of votes for Justin Fields, 2 votes now for Cordarrelle Patterson, and at least one vote for Alan Saunders.
Patterson.
Yeah,
and one for me. There you go.
And at least 1 vote for Alan Saunders. You know what? No, 2. I'll vote for you as well. You're tied with Cordarrelle Patterson.
All right. I don't think you want, as a Steelers fan, you should not want that. You should not want that.
The last thing that I want to talk about. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just like, I think like we talked a lot about the differences between OTAs and training camp. Like the things I was seeing. I was seeing a lot more out of Pat Freiermuth and Calvin Austin in OTAs when Russell Wilson was the quarterback than I did in training camp when Justin Fields got involved. And so I do think we may see more out of the depth of this passing offense than we have with. I'm actually very confident that we will see a more well-rounded, well-developed passing offense with Russell Wilson in there. I'm just not sure. The red zone really is the part of it where I'm not sure if they'll be able to maintain the level of success that Justin Fields' legs have brought them.
Yeah, absolutely. The last thing I want to touch on before we get out of here is Aaron Rodgers. Briefly, like what kind of challenges still at 40 years old is he going to present to this defense? Because still can sling it. I think if you watch that Monday night game, see the way that the ball kind of explodes out of his hands, the windows that he can still fit it into. Obviously not the most mobile guy, but neither is Joe Flacco, who was able to pick apart the Steelers defense a few weeks ago. So what concerns does Aaron Rodgers bring to the table for this defense?
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning. They just got torched by great value Aaron Rodgers. And so, like, that's not good. Now you got to face the real article. I think there are some things that this defense has done the last couple weeks that I think should provide some, like Patrick Queen looking a lot better last week, should provide some confidence. I think B. Bishop has had a good week last week. That should help a little bit. But I think Aaron Rodgers is going to find the holes in your defense wherever they are. I think he's going to be able to pick on B.D. Bishop. I think he's going to be able to find mismatches wherever they may live. I'm interested to see what the Steelers are going to do with their corners with Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson now, because do they send Joey Porter to one of those guys or not? I don't really know. I don't have a strong feeling about whether one of those guys is a better matchup for Porter or whether one of those guys is significantly better than the other. I think they're pretty balanced. Alan Lazard is going to be a bear for Beanie Bishop. Like, that is probably the toughest matchup he'll have had yet, while the other guys are dealing with like tough matchups on their own. So, this Jets offense has been a mess. They've not scored at all. But like the personnel is really good. So I don't know. I think they're going to have to get pressure with 4. I think that's a big part of it. They're going to have to stop the run and get Rodgers into obvious passing situations. I think that's another big part of it. But this is a scary matchup for the Steelers in a lot of ways. Like I always think that when you're playing a team and you look at the team on paper and you're like, they should be pretty okay, and they're not. Like, that's a dangerous group. And I'm interested to see how this goes, but I don't really love this matchup for the Steelers on paper in a lot of ways.
I think at least as we sit here today, what I'm finding solace in with that offense, because the personnel is very good. You know, the guys that they have on the perimeter, I think the quarterback can still sling it. Breece Hall is one of my favorite running backs in the league. I think he's super talented. The offensive line has not been very good. Like Tyron Smith finally looking his age, even when like the concern with him was always the health. Now he is, at least as far as we know, healthy, but he's still not playing well. Should get Morgan Moses back on the other side, but they're like a combined 85 years old. So like, and then up the middle, like Elijah Vera Tucker is tied for the most penalties in the league with guards. Joe Tippmann's been okay. I'm not sure who their other guard is. I don't know but either way, I don't think that their offensive line's been very good. I think that's kind of what's been holding this offensive unit back to a degree.
I agree, and I'll add to the list of weapons. If you're not familiar with Braylon Allen,
yeah,
you should probably get familiar
youngest
with
player
him.
in the NFL.
He's like someone just took like the Colossus of Rhodes and made him into a running back. He's like a gigantic statue that like is impervious to damage, who just plows into things.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's quite a fun player. I think I love the Jets personnel, and I think I guess that's a good reason to fire the coach if you think the personnel is good and the team is not succeeding. But I'll say this: I don't think Todd Downing's a very good offensive coordinator, and I think Arthur Smith knows all his tricks too. So that should be interesting as well.
True. That is true. Absolutely. Well, we'll continue to talk more about that matchup as the rest of the week unfolds here. Alan, until then, tell the people where they can find you.
We will have a lot more news tomorrow because we're going to talk to the quarterbacks. We're going to talk to George Pickens. We're going to talk to Cam Hayward. And then we're going to talk to coordinators. Yeah. So, like, expect a news-dense show on Thursday. Yeah. And, until then, Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers Now is the site's account. SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the words so I can get paid. And like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel.
There we go. Leave us a comment as well, whether it's a question for a future episode or comment about anything that we talked about today. We still want comments about Raising Cane's. We still want comments about who you want the starting quarterback of this football team to be.
Smitty, tomorrow we got to get a ride involved. It's been too long.
You're right.
We got a couple. I think we've been tagged in a couple. We got to find them.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, keep those coming our way as well. It has been a while, so be sure to do that for us. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. You'll find us there, just like you'll find us on TikTok at Steelers Afternoon Drive, and you'll find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.